Hello, welcome to Steel City Rings. Leanne, take it away.
Hey, everybody, welcome to the podcast. We appreciate you turning in to listen. The Steelers managed to pull off a win over the Denver Broncos in week 2, 13-6. However, it was not a clean win. I mean, you can tell from the score is a low scoring affair. I will say at least they got in the box, which was something they did not manage to do week 1 against the Atlanta Falcons. And it was a very exciting touchdown to Darnell Washington. It was nice to see him finally used in a game. But there's a lot to talk about. There's issues with the penalties again, some of them BS, some of them fair. There was issues with the offense and the play calling. About the only place that you can't say anything really negative is the defense, except for maybe Joey Porter Jr.'s penalties. The special teams unit looks pretty good. Our new punter, Corliss Waitman, looks solid. Chris Boswell was, of course, again accurate. Guys, let's start with the offensive line.
Well, I guess I'll jump
Go
out
ahead,
of this.
Zach.
So
Ran away.
I am in the minority. Let me start out this other thing. I am aware I'm in the minority. I've got pushback everywhere, probably for good reason. But I am looking big picture here, and the Broderick Jones situation has me very worried. I see this devolving quickly. To me, I'm looking past how he performed. I'm looking past the mishandling of what the Steelers did. I'm looking at what this is going to look like in midseason and near the end of it. And I legitimately see another Antonio Brown situation because he already seems like he is fed up. He has already said he doesn't want to play in a rotation. He gave to me what to me were cop out answers, whether he was deservedly to give them or not, which I think he was. They were still cop out answers. He dead eyes, no enthusiasm whatsoever. And what does he have to be enthusiastic about? And I noticed that wide receivers not named George Pickens have 25, 28 yards in 2 games. So my big thing that I'm going to get so much pushback on for is I want us to find a way to use Broderick Jones to get a legitimate wide receiver to back up George Pickens. Because I think if this keeps going on, then it's going to devolve, and we're not going to be able to get any value for Broderick Jones because it's going to get ugly. Sides are going to be taken. I understand that people are saying we don't have tackles and we need depth and all that. This is going to get ugly, and with this particular season, we don't need ugly. We've had ugly for 3 seasons. I'm tired of ugly. So let's avoid that and jump out ahead of this. But I know people aren't going to like it, but that's what I saw.
So for anybody listening that maybe didn't pick up on this yesterday, Broderick Jones went into the game as kind of a rotational player with Troy Fatanu, with Dan Moore playing on the left side and the two of them rotating on the right. Jones quickly racked up multiple penalties, and I mean, I think it was within like 6 plays or something, and Tomlin, yanked him off the field and put him on the bench. The press conference at the end of the game, Tomlin, who usually minces his words, did not, and when asked if Broderick Jones got pulled because of the penalties, he was like, yes. Then when they asked Jones about it later in the locker room, he quickly said that, he doesn't feel like he should have been playing if he wasn't starting. He, like Zach said, made it obvious that he was not interested in any kind of rotation with Faltanu and was clearly very frustrated. This came on the heels of former Steelers Chris Hoke saying that he felt that during training camp, Broderick Jones came in very disinterested. So this kind of lends you to wonder, was he upset that they drafted Faltanu to begin with? Did he feel like that was stepping on his toes? Or is this really something new? And we have a question from Anna Lee, who's my kid. She's so cute. Hi, Anna Lee. Do we have a solid replacement for Broderick Jones? I think that's a really valid question. I mean, what do we do, Zach, if we trade Broderick Jones away for a wide receiver, like you said? What do we do? What do you think, Bob?
Well, the problem is we only have 3 tackles on the roster. So you got Dan Moore, who refuses to play anywhere but left tackle. I'm going to get to that in a minute. Troy Furtado, who played left tackle in college, but he's not a blindside tackle. So he was always going to switch to the right. The moment they drafted him to be the not blindside tackle for the Steelers. Broderick is supposed to be on the left side. You know who we got to back up at this point at tackle? Nothing. Maybe Darnell Washington. I mean, we only have 3 tackles on the roster. This has been so mismanaged. And Zach has brought up the point. Okay, let's try to flip Broderick for a wide receiver. in theory, that sounds great. But if you haven't been paying attention, teams like the Rams, who expect to contend, are down their top 2 wide receivers. So, and the Rams historically will overpay and go crazy trying to fill holes if they think they can contend. So, I don't know how much success we would have. And at this point, AJ Brown has to sit out this week. There are people going down all over the place, all over the league. So I don't even know who we could get. But as far as Broderick being upset, I wish he would go further. If I was knowing he only got 3 tackles on the roster, I went through and charted, because a lot of people, when you were watching the game yesterday, you were like, okay, 10-0 in the first half, offense looked pretty good, except for coming off the goal line. Broderick was in for the tail end of the touchdown drive. He was on the field when they threw that pass to Darnell Washington. He started the next drive. They came off the goal line. They started to get out the midfield, and then 3 plays in a row. I'll start. And 3 out of 6, but I think it was 3 plays in a row. The holding calls were back to back.
Back to back.
The holding call on the run was a good call. He absolutely held him. He reached out. I don't know why he did it, but I mean, hey, guys get beat, they get holding penalties. That second hold on the pass play to Pickens, that was ticky-tack. TJ gets held way worse than that. So does Alex. I could have seen that call was there all game long for everybody on both sides. And I almost felt like, hey, we got him twice in a row. Let's get him a third time. The ref's getting pumped up, throwing flags, which, that's another topic of how many flags they threw yesterday. But, yeah. And then at that point, when he comes off the field, oh, you got 3 penalties in a row. I'm already pissed because I'm not playing. Okay, fine. You know what? Yeah, don't use me as rotational. But he backed those comments up with, hey, I'm not the coach. I'll just keep doing whatever they ask me to do. And that's his problem. Him saying that, hey, I'll just keep doing whatever that I'm asked to do. I mean, he really doesn't have a choice, and the Steelers don't have a choice. I thought Chris Muller made an excellent point this afternoon about Broderick. Okay, I'm second string. I'm the second string left tackle. Put me at my position. Let me take reps with the second string with Kyle Allen or Russell Wilson when he comes back, or the scout team. And let's see what I do at left tackle. I only play left tackle now. I don't play right tackle. Not my fault. You only have 3 tackles. Let him pull a Dan Moore. And then all these people, and like Chris Hoke, okay, well, he had a horrible game in the preseason game too. If Hoke knew he was disinterested, where was he? I sometimes I think he says things just to say them, but let's see an apples to apples conversation, because Zach and I talked about this Friday night on a quick TikTok. 88% of the time, Broderick's one score at left tackle in the NFL is better than what Dan Moore can produce. So let's be fair. Okay, I'll play it in practice. I'll play left tackle. You tell me he's better than me, fine. I'll just sit here and be happy. We let Dan Moore get away with that. I don't understand why we're treating our first round draft pick like this.
Trounce Dan Moore for the attitude about it. You know what I mean? We give him so much grief. The fan base
trounces him. The coaching staff doesn't trounce him. They let him get away with it. That's why fans are mad. Yeah, the fans are mad because
so why is it okay to encourage that behavior from Broderick Jones? Do you know what I mean? And all the other players who complain and speak up and defend themselves and say what they think, they get run through the mud for doing that. But then somehow it's different for Broderick Jones because such a big portion of our fan base hates Dan Moore. And the reality is if Broderick Jones wants to earn himself a starting spot, then he's got to start making himself look like he's got his shit together.
I mean, not giving him the opportunity. He's not getting reps at left
when
tackle.
He's getting the opportunity, he doesn't look good. He didn't look good in the preseason. He didn't look good last night.
He didn't play left tackle in the preseason.
He's got to be adaptable. I mean, they made it of Omar Khan.
Why? Why does he have to be adaptable and Dan Moore doesn't? Dan Moore doesn't.
Because Dan Moore was a 4th round pick or whatever. Broderick Jones was a 1st round pick,
where he plays,
chosen for his adaptability. And I mean, to me, we trade Broderick Jones and we've got nowhere to put him. I mean, I don't disagree, but I mean, I agree with Anna Lee. I'm nervous about the offensive line. We get rid of him. we need to be doing, to me, instead of getting rid of him or dumping him or benching him and making him feel bad, I think they need to be doing something that makes him feel a part of this offensive line and building him up. I don't know what that is. My personal opinion would be to play him at left tackle and allow Troy Fautanu to play at right tackle and see if that helps settle things down, because there's just some positions in the NFL that are not rotational. You can rotate your wide receivers and rotate your safeties or whatever, but you don't rotate your centers. You don't rotate your tackles and your guards, and you don't rotate your quarterback. I mean, that little section of the team is not rotatable. So the notion that you're going to have these two guys flipping in and out is absurd. Like, I don't even know why anybody thought that was a good idea, unless they felt like they needed to get a look at him or something. But, to me, right now, Dan Moore is doing everything right, making himself look good, saying all the right things, giving interviews to the media, talking about how great Troy is and how much they've grown and all these things. And he just keeps putting his head down and consistently beating them out.
So this coaching staff, and I want to crystallize this because I have made this argument on Twitter, and nobody's had a retort for it yet. A franchise left tackle, the franchise tackle tag is $20 million. So we are going to take our first round draft pick, who we drafted to be the left tackle of the future, and let Dan Moore play out his contract as the starting left tackle, and then set ourselves up for the position of, well, okay, we're not happy with Broderick, so we're going to keep Dan Moore and pay him $20 million per year for the worst graded tackle in the NFL for his career.
Last year he was. He's not now.
For his whole career. 3 years. The 3 years, he was the worst graded left tackle.
But he's not now. And that's now is all that matters.
Well, have we seen his Pro Football Focus grade for this week?
I didn't look, but all I can say is that I don't put any stock in Pro Football Focus, because if I'm going to continue to say it's BS against TJ Watt, I can't use it to support my argument against Dan Moore. And I don't think the Steelers are going to keep Moore. I think they're going to keep Jones, but I feel like there has to be something happening behind the scenes that, like, we aren't hearing or aren't privileged to. Like, maybe Hoke is onto something. Maybe there is some attitude happening there. I mean, Jones is very used to being the big man on campus at Georgia, and you come into the pros, and that's a next level thing. You have to earn your spot. You have to be humble. You have to earn your way in. It's very rare that a player comes in and just gets everything handed to them so easily. And I thought he did a really good job.
It happens with first round draft picks all the time.
Last season, he sat on the bench. He had to wait for Chooks to get benched, and then he got his turn to play. And when he got it, I thought he came in, he played well, he was consistent, he was steady. And now all of a sudden this year, he seems angry and agitated. And so there has to be something else going on from last year to this year.
Yeah, I mean, first round draft picks, first round draft picks get it handed to them all the time. Andrew Thomas played about as bad for the New York Giants in his rookie year as you could play. He's an all-pro now because he learned on the field and said, okay, I got to get better at this. I got to get better at this. I got to get better at this. That was Jones's teammate in Georgia, the guy he backed up the first year. Brian Baldinger was on record when they drafted Jones. Jones is better than Thomas. He's more athletic. He's a better player. So the whole argument that the Steelers have not played him at left tackle one game, they don't play him there in practice, and it's not because, he couldn't handle it. It's because Mike Tomlin's ego is driving this. Dan Moore, let me show you how good he is. You're setting us up to pay $20 million to the worst tackle in football.
Well, let's be very clear. We're not going to pay Dan Moore $20 million, regardless if he plays out his contract or not. So there's in no universe, because if Mike Tomlin brings that up, he will be out of the coaching. Then you can say Omar Khan.
Yeah,
so that would be the last straw.
All right, let's put a pin in that for a minute and bring up another comment we got about Najee. So Najee Harris made some comments after the game yesterday. He literally called it the same old shit. and was asked if the offense is just being conservative. There's all this talk from like Kaboli about how the Steelers offense is being conservative. They're treating Justin Fields like he's a true backup. That idea like we used to do with Mason, where you don't want to lose the game, and so you put this player in and you want him to just do enough to be able to win the game. So when asked that last night, he responded and said, no, he doesn't see it as just being conservative. It's the same old shit. Kaboli made a comment today on 93.7 The Fan that he sees eerie similarities between this offense in these first two games and what we saw from the first two games from Kenny Pickett last year. So do you guys think Najee's comment about the offense was fair? And what do you think can be done to improve it? Hi, Charlotte.
Well, first of all, if anybody believes that this offense and the Kenny Pickett offense is the same, you legitimately don't know football. I am saying straight out, if you take insult to that, I don't care, because you don't know football. It has been broken down countless times by people. This Arthur Smith offense is better. And I think, who was it? Not always a big fan, but he knows his football. Deshaun Kovacic was in the Steelers locker room and said that Arthur Smith, Pat Fryermuth, Calvin Austin, everyone was walking up and doing this, just this. We are this close. We are this close to everything clicking. And they said multiple players are saying, calm down, we are this close. But Najee is also right, because I yet again see Najee throwing multiple guys off before he gets to the line. And that's why I've always been not as harsh on Najee as everybody else, because when you're having the production he has while throwing guys off, but it is important to say that's happening mostly on the left side of the line where Dan Moore is.
I think Najee's just indicting the offensive line. Look, over the last 2 years, the Steelers have played 11 games with Broderick Jones on the field as the starting right tackle. During those games, they average over almost 4.3 yards per rush. They've scored 13 rushing touchdowns. In the games that he has not been on the field as the left tackle, which is a total of 7 games, or right tackle he hasn't been there, they've averaged 3.5 yards a carry and scored 3 touchdowns. It makes a difference who's blocking and how they're blocking. You could see it yesterday in the second half, and I thought CBS did a good job, and Bill Cowher mentioned this at halftime, that the first half, the offense, they're moving the ball. Fields and Archuleta pointed this out too. 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5, Justin Fields is very hard to stop, and the Steelers were possessing the ball and taking the ball down the field. As soon as it got into the second half, what did we see constantly? 2nd and 8, 3rd and 7, 2nd and 8, 3rd and 7. It's almost, I felt like I was watching Bill Cowher's offense yesterday. Tomlin always gets grief about, he should be more like Cowher. Well, yesterday he was like Cowher. Hey, I got a 10-0 lead. This offense ain't going to score any points. He just put the ball in the freezer and they started running clock. I think first half they're saying Fields is the perfect guy to run this offense. He's getting out on the edge and he's doing these things. He's using his legs. The pass to Fryermuth was awesome. I really wish I had gone for a touchdown. They got it the next play, but that little float pass on the run, that's a hard pass to throw. And so it's there. The skill set is there. But like Zach said, this close. In the first half, they were close. The penalties killed them. They probably should have been ahead 17-0, 21-0 at the half. I mean, they dominated the first half. The second half, I don't know. I mean, the running game just wasn't effective. And I think part of that is because they run wide. They go to the tackles. Look, the strength of the team is the center and the 2 guards. Zach Frazier is playing great. And I think Anderson's playing pretty good. And I think Daniels is playing pretty good. So run the ball in between the guards. Don't go outside to the tackles.
It felt very much like Denver went in at the half and made adjustments. Do you know what I mean? Which is what they should do. It is what I would want the Steelers to do if we were down by 10 points at the half. It felt like they went in, they saw what we were doing with Justin Fields. They went in and made adjustments where they were forcing him to have to throw the ball to be successful. And Arthur Smith or Mike Tomlin or whoever it is would not release the handcuffs enough to let Justin Fields go ahead and take some of those chances. And that's so frustrating because we had the penalties and it negated so many good things, but we still saw those passes happen. The one to Fields was huge. I mean, Fields almost caught that one pass where the guy was holding his arm one-handed. I mean, there was a lot of really good stuff happening. That chemistry is
Jefferson?
there. Yeah, well, there was
you said Fields. I think you meant Jefferson. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that there's a lot of really good chemistry happening there between Fields and Pickens, and I just think that and obviously between Washington and Freiermuth, and they just have to open it up more. And to me, if you can't, when you're up by 10, you're right. It did feel very much like the old Bill Cowher days, of like just sit back and play some prevent defense and hope that they don't score 10 points and just try to ride out the clock. And to me, if they had just been a little bit less conservative with that offense, we would have been able to maybe make some connections there and get another touchdown or two in that second half.
Well, I mean, and look at, as far as George Pickens is concerned, now in 2 games, he's got 110 receiving yards that are sitting. That got taken away from penalties, and those are passing yards for Fields. You don't get that OPI, you don't get the holding call yesterday. I mean, all of a sudden it looks like Pickens is a ridiculous monster, and Fields is playing great. So
Caboli brought up the point that we don't really have any more information about Fields than we did 5 months ago. And I thought that was a really interesting point. You know what I mean? You think he's playing these 2 games and your brain tells you, oh, we get this chance to see what he really brings to the table. But do you? I mean, if he's handcuffed, we aren't really seeing what he can actually do.
I kind of disagree with that, because I thought the one play where, I think it was Fatano got beat like a drum on a blitz, and he just immediately took off out to the right and scrambled for 12, 15 yards. And they had a free shot at him and they couldn't catch him because he just started running away. You saw the end look like, okay, I'm there. Oh man, no, I can't catch him. And then just kind of dive at him.
But is that new? Isn't that what we saw in Chicago, where those flashes of speed and those, the times he got away from the defense? And I think what we didn't really see was his ability to be able to be a passer in the offense. You know what I mean? What does that look like for him?
Well, here's where I'll quibble with people who say that. There's this huge conversation that goes around 3 or 4 times a year how the Steelers didn't use Cordell Stewart right. Obviously, people who didn't watch him play. But, hey, why didn't you have him use his legs? People kind of criticize Lamar for being the running back, but I don't care. He takes off and runs, and Baltimore wins a lot of games. They don't win playoff games, but he wins a lot of games. So am I okay with Justin Fields, a running quarterback, using his legs?
Sure.
Yes, I want that. I want him to take off with it. If I'm going to put him in the game, I don't want him to stand in the pocket and read defenses. I mean, if it's there, a pre-snap quick throw, okay, great. But if I've got Justin Fields, I'm a dummy if I'm not rolling him out and letting him do the high-low go. I mean, it's almost unstoppable. Ryan Tannehill had the 2 best years of his career playing that style. If Ryan Tannehill can do it, Justin Fields got a lot more natural talent.
Zach, let us into what you're thinking.
I think that I disagree with a lot of people. I know what Justin Fields is now. Justin Fields is the starting quarterback of this football team. That's who Justin Fields is right now, because
you believe he's been handcuffed?
Yet again. Oh no, not at all. I think Justin Fields is with an offensive coordinator that knows how to progress a quarterback, that knows he cannot throw you into a system, say you have to run this. Yesterday they were saying this is a progression thing with Justin Fields. Number one, whoever said that we don't know more about Justin Fields than we knew 5 months ago, yet again, that makes me upset, because Justin Fields has made huge strides already in how he sees the field, in how he commands a team. Anyone who wants to know what Justin Fields was dealing with, look at what Caleb Williams did last night. That man was massacred. And that was supposed to be a better offensive line than the one Justin Fields has. So Justin Fields And everyone's saying that Caleb Williams was supposed to deal with it, so maybe we should be a little kinder to Justin Fields. But in the second half, it's important to know any quarterback in the league is going to have difficulty when they're throwing from 3rd and 7 or more consistently. We had a 3rd and 10, we had a 3rd and 8, we had a 3rd and 12. Dan Moore holding made a 3rd and 15. You're
Right.
not going to have any success regardless of what quarterback other than maybe Patrick Mahomes in those situations. And even in Patrick Mahomes, he's probably going to try and force it every once in a while when 3rd and 15s. Now, there was a bad call on 3rd and 3 where we ran to Jalen. There was a fumble on a 3rd and 5, and there was a bad call on a 3rd and 4. But most of it was the offense has, like I said, yes, we are that close. And a big part of it is one of these wide receivers has to step up. And I'm excited to see if that can be Roman Wilson, because we are so close to this offense hitting. And people have to understand this offense hitting is not going to look like the Rams hitting and the Chiefs hitting. Yet again, we have the least money in the league invested in offense. Let's hold ourselves back. Our expectation should be this. We have a dominant defense that should win games for us, and we have an offense that should not lose games. To me, that's my expectation of the Steelers in 2024.
And I will say this about Justin Fields. His career completion percentage in Chicago was 60%. It's 70 with the Steelers. Mm-hmm. They're throwing conservative passes, but it's 70%, and you throw those 2 passes to Pickens, if you counted those, that's another 100 yards passing. If you're telling me Justin Fields is throwing for 200 yards a game and not turning the ball over and using it with his legs and just controlling it, we also probably have another 10 points or so. Yeah. I've seen a lot from him that I think based on, and let's face it, as constituted, maybe when Isaac gets back, we'll see it take a step forward as far as the line play goes. But we're going against San Diego. I mean, the rubber's going to hit the road real fast when Joey Bosa comes to town. So, I think, the idea of, going to Wilson, who I don't think they'll go to Wilson this week. I don't think he's going to be healthy enough. The idea of somehow Wilson standing in the pocket as a stationary target for Bosa is a good idea with the way this line is currently playing. Ooh, no, I need Justin Fields running around.
Yeah,
it's important to know that this defense isn't just good. We have what was supposed to be one of the most competitive divisions in the league. We have allowed 16 points in 2 games. The Browns have allowed 46 points. The Ravens have allowed 53 points, and the Bengals have allowed 42. Right now, that's our defensive competition. I'm feeling really good if we're looking at the second half of the season as the difficult stretch, and we're already outmatched like that. I'm very happy with that. If we can outplay defensively like that, that's AFC North football.
I think the comment's funny. Anna's pointing out Justin Fields, but John has joined us and chimed in. So was Bryce Young.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, though. She's right about Justin. I think that this is a fact that I think is chronically overlooked by people. The best quarterbacks in the league 90% of the time get drafted by the crappiest team. So, these kids aren't set up for success. You look at Bryce Young, it's all this talent. Trevor Lawrence, it's all this talent. And these kids struggle until the team can get the rest of their offense to catch up with where their quarterback's talent is. And I think Chicago didn't really make a real concerted effort to make that happen for Fields. I agree with her that, he's not to blame for the Bears being the Bears. We heard Fields' own teammates talk about, I did an article on it, how the Bears forced him to play to lose. Do you know what I mean? And there's something really wrong with that mindset. And so how do you grow as a player when that's the system you're in? And I think he's come into Pittsburgh. He's a passionate kid who wants to win. I think he's got all the talent in the world. So what do you do when Russell Wilson is healthy? Does he get his job back? Because there's still people out there who think that it's his job.
It really depends on how they play this week, because I think it's not set in stone, but I think it's pretty logical. If they indicated we wouldn't see Wilson till at least week 4, and I wouldn't bring him back against Bosa. That to me is crazy. But the one thing I will say, I don't think you can compare Trevor Lawrence and Bryce Young, because Lawrence has weapons in Jacksonville and has shown the ability to move the team. He got a playoff win. Yes, he put him in a 27-point hole, but then he dug him out of it and got one of the all-time playoff wins. Lawrence is that prototype, that 6'5", just mobile. I think there's a lot of hope for Lawrence. Bryce Young, he's undersized. He was undersized coming out of Alabama. I mean, I don't think you could sit a 5'10" frail. I mean, if you've ever seen the pictures of him in training camp this year, folks, it looked like a middle school kid going to a
Yeah, he's not big.
practice.
I simply meant that these kids that get drafted in those first few picks tend to go to the worst teams. Do you know what I mean? That just lack the infrastructure to support them. So it wasn't a comparison of Fields to Young or Fields to Lawrence, just merely a statement about the type of teams that they are. I think, so what happens, let's say Field goes out this week against the Chargers, and let's say we have the same, almost a carbon copy of the game we just had against Bronco. You know, we put up 10 points quickly. We look really good in the first half. We kind of die in the second half. Our defense manages to do enough to hold them off, and we pull out the win. Is that enough to keep Fields in over Wilson if Wilson is healthy week 4?
If it's
go ahead, Zach.
If it's a carbon copy, I think that says that this is an offense Fields can't be successful in, because a carbon copy would mean that the offensive line still has the same issues. Because if I look at the best throw Fields had made, it was the one that was taken back, that beautiful rollout throw. No way is Russell Wilson making that throw. No way on this earth is Russell Wilson, healthy calf or not, at his age, making that throw. So that's what's needed in this offense right now. And I'm hoping that Arthur Smith is looking back at this, and I believe he is, and seeing what you saw, Bob, that the rollouts are working. And he's like, Justin Fields is in a place now where I didn't think he'd be already, where I can start throwing more stuff at him. Because I think the most exciting thing for Arthur Smith is going to be going back and watching this tape and seeing that Justin Fields is ready for more. And I think Matt Canada didn't care. Matt Canada didn't know what his quarterback is ready for.
Yeah, I mean, John is making a good point, and it's a point we've made about, hey, yeah, you want to see what you got. Look, you know, I think a lot depends on whether Justin Herbert plays. He's hurt. The X-rays were negative, but there's no guarantee he's going to play. I mean, Steelers have been pretty lucky facing quarterbacks over the last couple of years where, you know, magically the big ones, when they come to town, don't seem to get to play. If we're playing the second string quarterback for the Chargers, I forget what his name is. He played Easton Stick, I think is the guy.
Interesting name. I can't remember it.
Yeah, and he didn't really play very well last year when he was forced into action. So if you're telling me we got that Bo Nix kind of deal where we know this quarterback ain't going to move the ball, and we win it 13-16 to nothing and just play that same conservative offense to jump out to a lead, playing a little less conservative, then we go conservative. Look, I think there's a real chance in the second half yesterday. Part of the reason we didn't see the rollouts is because Smith was concerned. Look, if I roll him out to the sideline, I'm not 100% convinced the tackles aren't going to just let the ends break contain, and I've got now a tackle bearing in on him, and I didn't want to get him hurt. So
Easton Stick, that's his name. I knew he had a unique name, but couldn't pull it right away.
Well, yeah. So whenever I look at this defense, I think of one thing, and a lot of people don't like it because it was one of the most boring Super Bowls on earth. I think of the Trent Dilfer Ravens, because I think of that team. Ray Lewis told his team, score 10 points, we will win every game for you. And I look at this defense, and I'm thinking TJ Watt and these guys could tell them that, because if we allow 10 points or less, we're probably going to win that game with this offense. We came into the season with was this narrative that we have this highly paid defense and all that'll keep us in all these games, and all we have to do is have a quarterback that's good enough to execute enough to give the defense a rest, a break. We everybody knew we weren't going to come in with this high-powered Patrick Mahomes offense throwing the ball all over the place.
And you look at it, though, quarterback play is down across the NFL. Patrick Mahomes had a career low passing yards yesterday, and they beat the Bengals 26-25.
Because it's cyclical, and defense is back on the rise. I mean, this is what happens. It kind of ebbs and flows in the league, and we're starting to see, you know, a rise in defense. From my perspective, I think I agree with John, and I think Fields is the future. I have a really hard time unless Fields really blows it this week, or like Zach said, we really just feel like he isn't the guy for this team. I feel like the ceiling for him is so high. Do you know what I mean? Where Russell Wilson's ceiling is kind of set now at 35 years old. Do you know what I mean? And we've seen that he's no longer growing as a player. Instead, he's kind of having some regression as he's getting older, which is normal. And I think that was fine with what we thought we were going to do, which was have him go out there and just be this game manager, pass the ball to Najee, pass the ball to Jalen, some play action, some little small passes to Freiermuth, whatever it is. That made sense. But now that we've had this opportunity with Fields to go out there, I think we need to embrace it fully. And let's see what this kid can do. Do you know what I mean? We have an opportunity to have this kid be the future of our team. So why would we throw it away? Do you know what I mean? He's won his 2 games. We stuck with Mason last year when he won his games, stuck with the hot hand into the playoffs. And I think that we should continue to do that.
Yeah. I mean,
know that.
Go ahead. I was going to say about the defense with John's question. I think the Atlanta game, the defense played very well. I mean, from top to bottom, except for the one drive where they gave up the touchdown, and that was questionable whether they should have scored with the penalty. I think for 2.5 quarters yesterday, the defense played really well. But if you watch the game, we got bailed out a lot because Denver couldn't catch the ball. I mean, their tight end, I think, dropped 108 passes.
Surtain's penalty.
Yeah, I mean, but Surtain's penalty was a penalty. I saw people like him complaining about that. I mean, come on, you grabbed a hold of him and he still almost caught the ball.
It was totally legit, but it doesn't mean that it didn't help help the team out. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Some. So yeah.
When I look at the defense, the difference between Atlanta and Denver is the defense was rested in the second half at Atlanta. We had 6 second half punts. We went back to a Matt Canada system where you can't expect. I don't care how highly paid a defense is. They're exhausted. They were, and TJ said afterwards, the elevation was horrible. So not only you were exhausted from 6 punts, but you're exhausted because it's just where you're playing. So I put nothing on the defense for the second half. I think any other defense in the NFL allows a ton of points in that second half.
John would like
we agree.
Direct line into the show so he doesn't have to die.
Wait, I actually think that we would be able to do that. John, you know what? I'm going to figure this out. So the next time we go live, I can actually give a phone number where you can call in, because I actually think we can set that up.
Yeah, I think there is a way too where we could maybe add him to ask a question and then have him go away after.
All right, so let's see. We covered everything on the offense, I think. Did we miss anything on the offense that we really needed to talk about?
No, one thing I do want to say, though, before we get into the defense, and Leanne, you kind of mentioned it, I thought Corliss Waitman did really, really, really well. I'm sure it was in Denver, but at least he was a league averager, better punter. And I would rather see when we needed a big punt, like towards the end of the game, I'm okay with you kicking it out of the end zone and him starting on the 20. I would like it if you could pin him, but I mean, 60-yarder out of the end zone, I like it.
I thought it was smart. I thought it was a smart play on our part to just kick it out of the end zone. I thought he played really well. I figured it had to be nerve-wracking. Do you know what I mean? He hasn't been with the team, obviously, so this is all new. And then you're in Denver, and I know the altitude makes the ball go further and whatever, but I thought it was a really solid first performance, considering how nervous I think most of the fan base was. So we'll see if he can keep it up.
Wait, did you guys know that Mike? I didn't know this. That Mike Tomlin has a tendency to give game balls to guys when they play their former teams. I didn't know that, because I thought that's pretty cool. I found out about that yesterday. I saw people talking about petty game ball. I'm like, what's a petty game ball? Look, that is us, because Corliss got one too, because he used to got one.
I had to read that like a couple of times close. I was like, wait, is Justin Fields saying, yeah, it was petty, they gave him a game ball? That's the way I read it at first.
Yeah, I thought that was
awful. I didn't play.
I was glad, because I felt for Russ a little bit not playing in that game. Do you know what I mean? I'm a competitor, man. It's hard. And I don't know that it would have been a good thing, but I am not necessarily glad that he didn't play, but, kind of.
Yeah, and for everyone just out there, this is nothing. It's not personal about Justin. I think Russell Wilson's probably a nice guy. He seems like a nice guy. This is purely football business, and I don't. Justin Fields is better, even if Russell Wilson has to look sad, still dressed in his uniform. That's what kind of made me sad. I'm like, oh, I know he's trying to be rah-rah, but it kind of made me a little sad. I'm like, oh,
No, I'm actually on the like personal Russ Wilson bandwagon, and I really didn't think I was going to be that way. He came into the team, and I was like, nah, hopefully he plays good quarterback because I don't know that I really like him, and he's really kind of won me over. I believe all the kissing babies and shaking hands that he's been doing. Okay, so the defense, guys. The defense, all in all, played really well. I agree with Zach that they definitely got tired as the game wore on, and they spent more and more time on the field. I thought they had some big plays. I was a little concerned about Joey Porter Jr. getting handsy again. I felt like there was a lot of defensive holding happening on the Broncos' part that wasn't getting called, so I found that very frustrating, and obviously, like you pointed out, Bob, they were constantly holding TJ and Alex. I mean, it was just constant. And then they were calling penalties against Alex Highsmith. He never gets penalties. I mean, that was like shocking. I was shocked. And so, I did feel like some of it was unfair. Some of it was ticky-tacky. Yeah, it is what it is. What did you guys think about the defense?
If you're going to be an aggressive defense, you're going to occasionally draw some penalties. And I'm okay with a holding here and a holding there. I didn't love the PI call. I thought that was a little. That was definitely illegal contact. I know Archuleta pointed out balls in the air, so they have to call it that way. I didn't love that call. But that being said, Corey Trice, he gets in the game, he gets the interception. That was a nice play. Awesome. He was on the field a couple other times. Jackson kept leaving the game because of injury. And I think the best thing we can say other than the interception was we didn't really notice when Jackson was off the field. Trice was playing pretty well. Beanie Bishop overall, a couple of nice plays. Still think he's a liability, but this is 2 weeks. And let's face it, Bo Nix. I mean, yeah, you could really get away with Beanie Bishop against Bo Nix.
Yeah,
I don't know. I want to see what happens if Herbert isn't playing. Might as well put 11 guys in the box because they ain't passing. Right. I mean, that's a running offense without Herbert. So I do hope Herbert plays. I don't mind that he'll be limited with his injury, and kind of see, okay, where is this defense at, and what happens? What happens if the offense is put in a position where they do have to score 3-4 touchdowns or get into the 20s to win the game? Then let's see what kind of game they call.
He was Bo picks too. He had a few interceptions yesterday that made me very happy. I thought the same thing that Annalise said about the old games with just Joey Porter, and it made me laugh and think about the time that they went in and won the game for Joey Porter after he got shot in the ass that year, and they went out and won that game for him, and I loved it. And I was like, now we got another Porter on the team. We haven't won in Denver in a really long time. I think it was like Mike Tomlin's third season as a coach was the last time we won in Denver, and he'd never beaten Sean Payton. So I thought those were kind of exciting monkeys to like get off his back.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Considering the amount of penalties, any penalty on Pittsburgh, you have to take with a grain of salt. Because like you said, it was pretty much like all the things that happen on every single NFL play that no other ref calls. These guys wanted the game to be about them. I hate when referee crews want the game to be about them. So I think the fact what we should look at with Joey Porter isn't that. I think he allowed one catch for 26 yards for Cortland Sutton. That for Joey Porter, I like, because not only does he shut down guys, he wants them and then shuts them down. So you can talk all you want as long as you can back it up.
Talked, he was kind of a non-factor for all the trash he talked going into this game.
Let's face it. I mean, except for that one night,
put hands on TJ Watt. I was like, "Come on, buddy, come on."
That one nice little slant to Sutton where he beat Porter straight up. But the only other big pass play they had was that trick play where it was the reverse. They flipped it to Dix, and I mean, if you watch that, I mean, it looks like he's trying to throw the ball at like a touch football game punt. Yeah. He threw it up so high.
Oh, my heart stopped. I literally was taken back to the Tebow playoff game. No,
Oh,
if you go
God.
back to the Tebow playoff game, there were 3 passes where he just threw it up, and our secondary lost the ball in the air. That's
Yeah.
exactly what I saw yesterday. There were 3 guys around him. I'm like, you didn't. That was an underthrow. So that in my heart, it for a second, I'm like, oh my God, we're gonna lose this game like we did against Tebow. Like for
Oh,
a second, but then because we're talking about defense. I think the Steelers are the only defense that could do this to me. I'm incredibly comfortable with bend and no break. And I think I've been that way for about 15 years with this
you're
particular
kind of
Steeler
immune
defense.
to it now. I mean, it's what we
Yeah,
always do.
exactly. So when we drive down the field, I don't get as nervous as I think I did in the early parts of Tomlin's thing, where I'm like, you know what? Yeah, we're fine. We're gonna make a big play. We'll do, and even if we don't, then let this be the 1 touchdown drive we allow. So the bend and don't break, I'm not as worried about. So because like when the biggest thing we were coming into this season worried about was cornerback depth, and when Dante Jackson went out, like Bob said, filled in beautifully. Love Corey Trice. I yelled Avatar pick as loud as I could when he picked that ball off. I was so
Yeah, I
happy.
was happy for him. Him, Darnell, that was nice to see those guys getting involved.
I would say normal years up until this year, bend don't break was kind of the philosophy. Excuse me, with Terrell Austin. I don't feel that with this defense. They've had bend don't break drives, but for the most part, I think it's been pretty stout. I mean, teams have not moved the ball. I mean, granted it's Atlanta, granted it's Denver, but for the most part, it's just been an isolated drive here or there. That's why I think the Chargers will be a good test. Is the run defense stout? Because we're going to find out this week. I mean,
Yeah.
the Chargers might run the ball more than Alabama does.
Yeah.
And the Chargers are they're what a lot of running yards per game. I forget what the average is. It's frightening. So do you guys think our defensive line is going to be able to, because that's our strength right now? Like I have firm belief in our front seven. I think we're going to see another game like whenever we used to go up against Derrick Henry on the Titans and we'd shut him down and everyone was like, oh, it's going to be Derrick Henry. And no, I'm not too worried about the running game. I am always worried when there is a game where there's no reason for a passer to beat us through the air, because that's always when we allow them to beat us through the air. So I'm worried about this.
We've been pretty fortunate in the first couple of games, and Atlanta at the beginning of the game ran the ball decent, but these offenses, Atlanta's offense and Denver's offense, they wanted to be cute, so they would get a 2nd and 6 and turn themselves into 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8 because they're going backwards on their own, or we get a sack. Chargers aren't going to do that. Chargers are going to run the ball. If they get 2 yards, they're running it again. They're looking to get 3rd and short, kind of like we are. So it's going to be an interesting test. If we keep them 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6, and Herbert's mobility is limited, I think we're going to do just fine against the Chargers.
It will depend really on whether Herbert plays or not, because this is a much more established offense coming from the Chargers than anything we saw from Atlanta, who, although Kirk Cousins is a veteran, he's coming off that injury and he's new to the Falcons. And then, of course, with Bo Nix, who's a rookie. So I think it's fair to say that this is going to be our first legitimate offensive test.
Yeah, and you look at from a defensive perspective, Quentin Johnston is kind of their number 1 receiver at this point, and he's not very good. I think it's just a matter of time before Ladd McConkey becomes their number 1 guy, but he's more of a slot guy. So it'll be a nice little test if Herbert's out there to see. But if you're telling me Joey Porter is following Quentin Johnston around, I don't think so. The Chargers aren't going to throw the ball. But, man, Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins, we're very familiar with those guys. They gashed us a lot of times in the Baltimore games, and then, another team, let's get cute. Okay, we're running the ball down your throat, but let's have Lamar pass, and all of a sudden we're down. That's why we beat him 8 out of 10 times. Lamar's never beaten the starting Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback in his career.
Yeah. And we're going to talk more about the Chargers in our show later this week when we do our pregame show. Guys, do you have any final thoughts about the game in Denver yesterday? Anything we forgot to mention? Anything else?
I think that considering everything that we said in the preseason and everything during the training camp, we're still in best case scenario. So everybody breathe just for a second. We have the hardest schedule in the NFL, and we started 2-0. If we could start 3-0, regardless of what it looks like, that's 3-0. That's 3 wins that we would have. done anything for the last couple seasons. So we are winning games that we're supposed to be winning. And this is, even though it's a challenge to me, it's a should win game. With what we have, we should win this game. So yeah, big test coming up. But against Denver, I'm happy. I'm very happy with what came out of it. Justin Fields is the start, not should be, is the starting quarterback of this football team.
Yeah, I agree with Kevin Adams put it up on X yesterday that hey, we're 2-0. It could be a lot worse. We're 2-0. So, are there problems? Yes, but let's not forget we're 2-0 with a 2-game lead on Cincinnati, a 2-game lead on Baltimore, and what should have been a 2-game lead on the luckiest team in the NFL.
Oh my
Folks,
God.
if you didn't watch the Browns Jaguars game, maybe two of the worst roughing the passer calls I've ever seen.
Yeah,
and
bad.
And in fairness, Jason McCourty, even the NFL official for CBS, was like, "Wow, these are bad."
Yeah, they were bad.
For my father-in-law Bill and my dad Wayne, sorry about that. I still love you even if the Browns don't. So.
We appreciate John, Annalise, Charlotte, everybody listening today, sending in your comments, your questions. We appreciate it. If you stuck with us this far, we appreciate it. Please do us a favor and like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. It helps that YouTube algorithm so that we get seen a little bit more. We definitely want to hear from you. So if you're watching this after the fact and you didn't get to send in a message to us, you can still comment on the YouTube video. You can send any of us a message at our personal X account or the show's X account or any of our social media sites that are on our link tree I always point the wrong way up there. And we want to hear from you. Definitely want to hear from you. We will see you at the end of this week for our pregame show to talk more in depth about the Chargers game. Thank you for watching.